Okay, so I need to talk to you guys about Jake and Logan Paul because I think that I've come across a conspiracy theory regarding them that could potentially ruin both of their careers. So this is pretty serious stuff. So if you don't know who they are, which I think everyone knows who they are by now, but in case you don't, they first became popular with the app Vine, but then when Vine shut down, they moved over to YouTube and now have both become massive YouTubers. Well, the first thing that I saw that kind of got me on this train of thought was this article I was reading about them, where it's just describing what they do and who they are, but at the end it said that they capitalize on their outrageous antics and bro-ish personality. And I thought, bro-ish? What does bro-ish mean? Like, why not just call them bros? Like, I don't refer to myself as human-ish, so why are they saying that? Well, then after that, I looked further into them, and I found out that they were born and raised in Westlake, Ohio, which just happens to be on the edge of Lake Erie. Now, I myself live on the other end of this lake in Ontario, and I've been to Lake Erie many times. And the last time we planned a trip to that lake, I was looking online and I came across this article talking about Bessie, which is the Lake Erie monster apparently. So people claim that in Lake Erie, they've seen this monster floating around. And I thought, okay, well that's kind of weird also. Well, then I find out that there's this hockey league called the AHL, and they have this hockey team called the Lake Erie Monsters, and the logo looks just like this monster. Well, at least that was what they were called up until 2007, when they changed their name to the Cleveland Monsters and just dropped the Lake Erie altogether. And I thought, okay, well that's strange. What happened in 2007 that would cause them to change the name and drop the Lake Erie part of it? Well, then I realized that back in 2007, Logan and Jake Paul started their very first YouTube channel. This is before the days of Vine, back when they were just kids, with a channel called Zoosh. So it just so happens that the same year that the Paul brothers started this channel, this hockey team dropped the Lake Erie part of their name. And then I realized, could the Paul brothers actually be Bessie, the Lake Erie monster? And in 2007, when they started their YouTube channel and they left the lake, that is why the hockey team dropped that from their name, because they were no longer in the lake. Now, I've got further evidence to prove this conspiracy. First of all, look at this famous photograph of Bessie in the water. If you look closely, that is clearly Paul hair. Now, you're probably wondering, like I was, how does this work logistically? Like, how do these two brothers form into this lake monster? Well, I've got a couple of professional artist renditions that I had done by myself to see how this could work. So my first idea was that they could just kind of link together inside like a latex monster suit, and Jake could just hold on to Logan's feet, and that's how they make the shape of the monster. But then I thought more realistically, perhaps Jake consumes Logan's lower half, and they sort of morph into this sea monster shape. But then I came to the most logical conclusion, which is that they probably used some sort of zipper system to link together and create this monster shape. Now this one made the most sense because I looked into zipper repair in Westlake, Ohio, and there's a list of the top 10 best repair places. Why is there so many zipper repair places in Westlake? Maybe that's why the Paul brothers chose this city to live in, because they knew if their zippers ever got broken, there was tons of places they could get it fixed. Well, then I started wondering, if the Paul brothers are this lake monster, how are they living on land? Wouldn't they need to keep water on them, or in them at least, to stay alive? Well, then I look over their entire career and I find that these guys are water obsessed, I would call it. If you look back at all of their past content, they are all about water. They are obsessed with water, constantly drinking giant jugs of it, even shooting it into their bodies just to try and stay alive. And look at this image here. Here's Jake in a giant pool of water with this giant snake, and you'd think that he'd be a little bit stressed out or a little bit scared of it, but look at him. He looks like he's totally comfortable because he's with one of his own kind. Now, before you go attacking the dislike button like a bunch of wild apes, I know this might sound far-fetched to you, but I actually did some mathematics that prove that this is the case, and you can't argue with math. So, Logan Paul is 6'2" and Jake Paul is 6'1", which is a difference of 1 inch. Well, it just so happens that in Westlake, Ohio, on February 26th, there was a snow accumulation of 1 inch. What are the chances of that? Well, on that very same day, the winds were 40 miles per hour. So I thought, okay, 40, what does that mean? Well, then I come across one of Jake Paul's videos called 40 Days, Jake Paul's Countdown to Fight Night, which refers to the boxing match that he had against another YouTuber, which took place on January 30th. Which Jake Paul won, by the way, probably because he has sea monster strength. So I start looking further into this boxing match, and I find this thing on the KSI subreddit called How to Defeat Jake Paul 101. So then I realize if you take the 30th, the night of the fight, and you add 101 from this subreddit article, it gives you 131. Now just remember that 131 for a second, because as I was looking into Jake Paul 101, I also came across this image when I googled that term of this Jake Paul Pokemon card. So now we're left with Pokemon and 131. And I thought, what could that possibly mean? Well, when you look up Pokemon 131, guess which Pokemon is the 131st Pokemon? Lapras, the Pokemon that looks just like a sea monster. So clearly, my point has been proven here, and Jake and Logan Paul are the Lake Erie sea monster. I personally think they shouldn't have to hide who they are. They should just come out with it And I think that people would actually accept it and be okay with it. But on a side note, my Patreon supporters are still living in my basement, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I did like a Logan Paul style prank on them to keep in theme with this video? Well, then I watched one of his most recent videos, and in the video, he took a lawnmower and he flipped it upside down and then threw a bunch of food and stuff in it so that the food flew everywhere and landed all over his friend who was laying in bed. And I thought, wouldn't that be fun if I did that to my Patreon supporters? So I took the lawnmower and I flipped it upside down, but I can't afford to waste cereal like that. So what I did is I went and collected all of my Patreon supporters' favorite family members, and I threw them in instead, and I just covered them with their family members, which I can't show that because I don't want to get demonetized, but they thought it was hilarious though. They were laughing so hard there was tears in their eyes. So anyways, if you want to join the Patreon basement, there's a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.